order the Jenks Planning Commission Thursday, May 8th at 6:03 PM, and we will start with a roll call. Brandon, please.
Wilson.
Here.
Boers.
Here.
Bowman.
Here.
Sellers.
Here.
Nixon.
Here.
Stevens. Chair West.
Here. First item of business is agenda item number 1, consideration and appropriate action relating to request for approval of the consent agenda. Looks like we have A through E on the consent agenda, which can be approved in one motion, or anything can be pulled from that for further discussion. Does anyone wish to speak more? Mr. Sellers?
Move to accept.
Before we do that, before we second that or discuss that motion, I do want to talk a little bit more about agenda item number D, the Glenwood Ridge plat. Any others?
Move to accept the consent agenda except for D.
So moved.
Wilson.
Yes.
Boers.
Yes.
Bowman.
Yes.
Sellers.
Yes.
Nixon.
Yes.
Chair West.
Yes. So on, what was that, on page 27, I believe?
Yes.
Reading through this, you had highlighted in red on page 28 toward the bottom under conditions that the amenities would be identified in detail during the platting. And looking through the plat and the packet, the information, I don't see any amenities besides a walking trail.
Yes, sir. Thank you for bringing that up. The applicant is present this evening, and I did speak with him just before the meeting. So in this case, the PUD was approved by Planning Commission and City Council, and part of that approval, one of the conditions was that the amenities would come back during the platting phase. So this is the platting phase. I let them know. They did reach out to me with the amenities, and I asked him to review it and add some other things to it. And I would recommend to you all that it just come back as a separate agenda item between now and final platting. Because you'll want to, it would be like, it's not even a minor amendment, it's just a condition of the PUD, and it has to be done. And I think you're gonna wanna see the package and approve it per the standards that are expected at the city of Jenks.
So you're saying you're comfortable moving this forward, that just the amenities package would come back?
I am comfortable with allowing the preliminary plat to move forward.
Okay.
But I would make a condition of that to be that the amenities package should return to Planning Commission between now and final plat application.
Thank you, Marcy. Any further discussion on item D? Nope. And agenda item number 2 is consideration and action relating to items removed from the consent agenda, which would be item D. Do you hear a motion on D?
Move to accept item D with conditions.
I'll second.
Brandon, let's vote, please.
Wilson.
Yes.
Boers.
Yes.
Bowman.
Yes.
Sellers.
Yes.
Nixon.
Yes.
Chair West.
All right, yes. Agenda item number 3
You're all done.
is JZ 25 PUD 116, decimal MA1, a request for a major amendment to PUD 116 to reduce minimum livability space in Fraser Meadows 2. Its general location is 131st Street and Harvard. Mrs. Hilton, do you have a staff report for this, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair West and Planning Commission. This item has been, well, I'll start with this statement. This subdivision has come before you for various reasons over the past couple of years. The project itself has been in the works for many years prior to my coming to the city of Jenks, which is over 5 years now. And hang on one second, I'm going to make one little statement. If you were here for consent agenda items only, you can go. You've been approved. Yeah. You can go if you don't want to stay. So I thought maybe that was missed in the moment. So this request is from Mr. Bell, and he has asked, I believe I quoted him, to remove the minimum square footage of the house size livability space. And I have, that was the end of the quote, from the PUD, and allow it to exist in the deed of dedication. So there's going to be, I'm going to try to lay out the past and get you to the present. And I'm sure when you hear from the applicant, he'll have some additional comments to make. But I'll just kind of start here. So this PUD, which is PUD 116, has had 4 amendments to date, 4 minor amendments, and one tonight is the first major amendment. So minor amendment number 1, I'll have to go backwards. Minor amendment number 1 was, had to do with the realignment of 130th Street, and then when that street was realigned, it caused the lots to shift, et cetera. So that caused a minor amendment. I was not here, so there was a different planner, and it was 2 city engineers ago. So it was Mr. Chris Robinson was the city engineer, and the planner when this project started was Mr. Jim Beach. And that application, when I came on board, the project was under review, I think, for preliminary plat when the new city engineer, Mr. Chris Cloyd, asked the applicant to move the street, like it had to be moved. And if I get some of this, it's been 5+ years, so I may not have it 100% right. But the bottom line is, they had to move the street, and it caused things to be reconfigured. That was the first amendment. The second amendment was specific to Lot 14, Block 1, and that was for a build line adjustment. And you all are very familiar with those. In the past, they would have gone to the Board of Adjustment, but because this is a PUD and because building setbacks are part of the land use standards for development, it's part of the Unified Development Ordinance. It was previously part of the zoning code. So I don't take them to Board of Adjustment. I bring them to you all as a minor amendment. The third one was also a build line adjustment, and that was for Block 2, Lot 14, ironically. And then the fourth amendment was when we discovered that there had been a number of homes that had been built that had less livability space than was required by the approved PUD. So PUD 116 has a caveat in it, a standard that was imposed by the developer and then agreed upon and imposed by ordinance, which means by law, by the city of Jenks. So the standard for livability space for the entire project, Phase 1 and Phase 2, was a minimum of 1,800 square feet homes. When we realized that we had multiple homes that had been built that were less than 1,800, I brought on my own accord, but with the knowledge of the developer, that we were going to make, I will call it clear the title. Because a lot of times what happens and why it's so important to have either a minor amendment or a variance from the Board of Adjustment, if you have a standard that is codified by ordinance and then is not imposed, it can cloud the title of a property. It's probably a bigger deal when it comes to encroaching a build line, but it still is a standard. And we write letters at the City of Jenks on a fairly regular basis from applicants who are saying, we need a zoning verification letter that this house or this property meets all the zoning requirements. So when that happens, then I have to say, well, actually it doesn't. And when that happens, then the lender may or may not lend the money, right? So now you're down to closing, and you've got someone trying to buy a house or a property, you've got someone trying to sell a house or a property, but because it doesn't meet a codified standard, they may or may not get the loan. So in order to provide relief for these blocks or for these lots, we brought it to you all and had a pretty in-depth conversation and just asked that the Planning Commission and provide relief through a minor amendment for these lots so that they can continue to exist. These homeowners did not know. Most of the time, the builders do not know. So I'll share another piece of the process. Most of the time, when a builder buys a lot or a group of lots, they use the planning document known as the plat. And you all are very familiar with that because we had 3 on tonight's agenda. You look at that plat, you assume that engineering has looked at it, that planning has looked at it, you all look at it. And so when a developer goes to sell those lots, that document is then handed to the builder. And so they know, okay, I've got a 25-foot front yard setback, I have an easement over here, I have, and then they have these, in their deed of dedication, normally there will also be, especially for Jenks, because the standard in Jenks for, I'd say probably close to 20 years, maybe even over 20 years, has included things that would not normally be considered zoning, such as livability space, materials, and it has always been thought of that during a planned unit development conversation, a PUD process, it's described as a give and take. So we have a code, and the developer wants to deviate from the code. So you all say, okay, well, what you got? So you don't want to do what we say you have to do, so what are you going to give us in return? And the standard has been, well, I'll give you 100% brick on the first floor, or I'll give you 75% masonry. So now maybe you can use some hardy siding, etc. And then in addition to that, they would say, and for your peace of mind or whatever, they would say, and this development is going to have a minimum of X square foot home. And so that then is codified by law through the PUD process. So that document up until probably 2 years ago, maybe this year, I can't remember when we started it, that PUD language then gets put into the plat document. A plat document is not codified. When a plat comes to Planning Commission and then to council, it is accepted. So council accepts the infrastructure that is laid out in that plat, and they're basically saying, yes, we understand that you have 35-foot streets or 75-foot streets. We understand that there are public easements, that there will be water lines in these easements. We agree to all of it, and then a whole bunch of people sign it. The owners sign it, the engineers sign it, the council signs it, the mayor signs it, the city manager signs it, and then it goes to Tulsa County and it's filed. So that was a little history to get back to, oh, I just bought a lot. And I get a plat, and that plat tells me what is required. So we took out, I think last year we started saying, and this is a great example, we've had 4 minor amendments and now 1 major amendment. So that plat document is not going to accurately reflect what is allowed to be built on specific lots or in general if certain standards are changed. Does that make sense? Because that plat document, when it was filed, let's say that the plat was filed, well, Fraser Meadows 1 was filed. And so what happened was, somewhere between all the approvals, and you all have seen the information, and I'll get to it in a minute, it was 1,800, 1,800, 1,800, 1,800, 1,800, 1,800, and then it got filed at 1,600. Now, I'm a home builder, and I bought 3 lots, and I want to build homes, and I have 3 clients. And I look at the information on that plat, and it says 25-foot setback, 5 and 5 on each side, and 1,600 minimum livability space. Done. Sign the contract, build the house. Except that's not what the PUD said. That's not what was approved by Planning Commission, and that's not what was codified by law by council. And so that's where we got to that minor amendment number 4. There was a law that was codified. There was a planned unit development, PUD 116, that was codified for Fraser Meadows that had a minimum square footage of homes. And that plat did not properly represent it. So we quit putting it in there recently for that exact reason, because you should look at the PUD, and our inspectors are even municipalities, the inspections department, they use that plat document. They don't generally use the PUD. So they don't know that PUD 16 has had 4 amendments. They don't know that there's one major amendment. They only know what was written 7 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 20 years ago in that plat. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So,
Do you want questions now, or do you want questions at the very end?
let's ask them now so I don't forget.
Me too. So
Okay.
how did this get changed in the PUD from 1,800 to the plat to 1,600 and got filed at 1,600? Who did that?
It would have had to have been the engineer that changed it.
Mr.
Because it is the
Cloyd?
engineer, no, not
The
the
one
city
bef-
engineer, the engineer for the developer. Because that's the one who is responsible for the plat document, for the details of the plat document. And I
Who
cannot,
reviews that right before it gets filed? Or can
everybody tries to. So this is how I review a document, a plat specifically. The plat comes in, and I have a list, and you all see it over and over and over. It's usually in blue text in your staff report. Does it have a north arrow? Is the engineer of record identified? Who was the surveyor? Who are the owners? Were there on preliminary plat? Let's see the 2-foot contours and all the neighborhoods around it. Like, there's a whole, and this is all state statute. This is everything that state statute requires. And then when Mr. Cloyd was here, we added a few additional questions for the review for preliminary plat. So in addition to that, before last year, I'll just say this year, before this year, then you would also have the PUD language. So I would go through and say, PUD 116, check. Side yard setback, 25, check. Minimum house, check, all of it. If it's right the first time, I'm not gonna look at it again. What I'm gonna look at the next, every time it comes forward, are those things that got changed, that maybe engineering says, hey, or planning says, hey, lots 4 through 7 are, don't have proper easement widths, et cetera, or Cox Communications said they want additional easements, so I'm gonna go back and check all of those comments. I don't go back and check comments that I've already knew were there and correct. I don't go back and see if the PUD language has been changed. That would be weird. I mean, like, why would it have changed? It was typed in at a specific thing. So, what else?
What I'm hearing you say is that somebody on the developer side changed the plat and filed it, different from what the PUD said.
Yes, sir.
What prevents that from happening frequently?
The PUD language is no longer allowed to exist in the plat document, so that's how I fixed it. The PUD gets filed as an addendum to the plat, and the only way that you can get that PUD is if you go into the land records, and moving forward, every time there's an addendum or an amendment to the PUD, it also gets filed with land records. But if the inspections department wants to know, if the builder wants to know, they're gonna have to have a copy of the PUD, not the plat. Or, I mean, they have to have the plat still, but in addition to the plat, they have to have a copy of the PUD. So that was my answer to correcting it. And the numbers on the reviews were correct 6 times. It was the 7th time that it was not correct. So to say it was not reviewed is not accurate.
So do I understand correctly that typically the builders are handed the plat
Yeah.
and use that document?
Yes, sir.
That was incorrect. And that our city inspectors used the plat
Yes, sir.
that was incorrect. And that's how we ended up with homes at 1,600
Yes, sir.
or less than 1,800 when the PUD, which is the law, required 1,800.
Yes, sir.
Marseille, when you say they have to have the PUD also, what does that mean exactly? Like what is the checks and balances to?
That builder
the
will
fact that
not
they
know.
actually have it and
Right.
are,
There's now language in the plat document, in the deed of dedication, that will say for details on development standards, see PUD 116. So it now tells them, surprise, you can't look at this document and know what you gotta do, you're gonna have to get the the PUD, sorry.
so even through the inspection process previously, they weren't required to check the PUD to ensure that it met that during inspections?
It's been an ongoing conversation, but until Fraser Meadows, it really never sunk in like what a big deal it is to use the PUD as the guiding document. It's not just Jenks, it is every municipality. The plat is the document, it is a legal document. It's just not adopted by law. So there's a difference. They're both legal documents, but a PUD is adopted by law by the city of Jenks. A plat is a legally binding document that has to go through very rigid processes to be amended. But that deed of dedication, that's where the city accepts the infrastructure and acknowledges the easements and all of that. But all of the rest of it, like minimum house square footage, that's not a state statute. That's not a PUD requirement. That is a PUD standard that has been used by the city of Jenks for years and years and years, but it is not a zoning thing and it is not a state statute. It is something extra that the city of Jenks has always required.
And so, Marseille, is that if the developer's engineer makes those changes to the plat that are not consistent with the PUD, doesn't that open up the developer to liability with all the plats that they have?
So it's not uncommon to have an error on a plat, and it's called a Scrivener's error, and we have a process for correcting that. It's just that in this case, I believe that the developer also thought that it was at some point changed to 1,600, and so it was no red flag to him. And I believe the applicant, Mr. Bell, also thought that it was 1,600. So there were, on the developer side, there were people who had conversations and thought that it was changed, but there was never a legal process for amending that from 1,800 to 1,600.
What would have given him the thought that that was acceptable? I mean, did we
I'll let
have
them
a
answer.
verbal conversation or?
Yeah, I think that there were a lot of conversations. I know, I believe when the street, when they were told they had to move the street off of, there's 2 utilities, one's live and one's not live. You can answer in a minute.
Uplands has a water line and Glenpool has a sewer line.
Yeah, so there are two things, and so they were told they had to move it. It did change the configuration of the lots, and it would make it harder to develop, and there was, I'm sure, conversations that talked about it would be very difficult to build an 1,800 square foot house with that lot configuration.
But there would have been something in writing, and someone would have had to have approved that in writing for them to have any confidence that they could go forward with that, correct?
With the 1,600?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Okay. Then the liability falls to the city for not following the PUD if we approve that, correct? I'm not looking for fault,
Yeah, as far as, I don't think, maybe liability
How's this
is
work?
not, responsibility
Uh-huh.
might be a better word. Liability is probably not
yeah,
really.
I'm not looking for, someone
Right.
being able to cash in on it.
I think, like I said, it's every municipality, that is the standard. The plat is the standard for building a subdivision, and it is the standard that the realtor uses for building a subdivision. That is the document. The PUD is the law for the city.
Right.
That's what I can enforce, but that plat document is what they live by. They cut those streets in exactly where those lines are drawn. They cut those lots exactly where those lines are drawn. So it's a very technical, detailed document until, even in like the deed of dedication, it's still a very technical, detailed document. It lays out who's responsible for what, whether it's private or public streets, and who has access, and what the lots can and cannot be used for. But I think that having the PUD within the deed of dedication of a plat has in every municipality caused great consternation, because there is an incongruence between what gets amended versus what does not get changed in the plat. So generally, what should happen if we wanted to leave the deed of dedication, which I am not, so that is not up for conversation. It's not happening.
Okay.
But if we never changed the way we did it and kept the deed of dedication and kept the language of the PUD, what should have happened is every time there was a minor amendment to this lot and this lot and this lot, they should have actually amended the deed of dedication on the plat. That is the only way that it would have been accurate and up to date. And you can ask engineers across the board, you can ask municipalities. I would say that might happen, it's probably less than 10% of the time, that the deed of dedication actually gets updated along with the changes, especially specifically to PUDs.
Is there any way that we can change that so that we validate that in the future?
We took it out. They don't even get a sneak peek of what the PUD says. You have to find the PUD to know what is
Okay.
lawful. It's not even in there. It's just gone. No more PUD language in the plats.
So it's a buyer's beware type of deal. The people who
I
buy
think-
buy the lot or buy the house need to know that.
I think that, speaking from personal experience now, not as a planner, I wouldn't even have known to look in a deed of dedication of a
Yeah,
plat.
I wouldn't.
It's just that you trust your realtor, you trust your
Yeah.
builder, you trust the developer, and you do the best you know, and you move forward. And that's why we have processes for correcting things and amending things and Scrivener's errors. There is a process for fixing all of it. It's just inconvenient a lot of times, because like I said, there might be an encroachment. Maybe someone knew about it, maybe someone didn't know about it. Some people get encroachments, they don't care, they'll never do anything with it, and whatever. Other people, the second they find out there's an encroachment, they take care of it immediately. Those plats should be amended every time. Like if I say you can encroach that build line and you can move from a 25-foot build line to a 23-foot build line, that technically should be amended in the plat. But it's not. So instead of amending this technical document over and over and over, We just said, take all that out, and now you have to go to the PUD document. There's been other municipalities trending towards that for a long time, for simplicity's sake, and I think it's better and it's an easier document to amend. It doesn't have the same state statute requirements and everything. It takes planning commission for minor amendments, planning commission and city council for major amendments. And then it's codified, it's enforceable, and it's done.
Any other questions?
I just want to make sure that I'm not missing something here. Are we talking about 7 or 11 locations or homes?
This was already done. This is one that you guys did.
That was back in June.
In June, yeah. June?
December.
December. I'll put the dates in. I didn't realize I didn't have the dates on any of them.
I read December somewhere.
So minor amendment number 4 was done. You all approved it previously, so it's not even really, this was just a history of the PUD.
The 7 homes or the 11 lots that are under the 1,800?
What page are you looking at?
71 of the second. And that's what you're talking about was December. Okay, I see that now. There's a lot on
Yeah, I know,
Fraser.
there
I'm
is.
just making sure I'm not missing.
Okay, yes, so this, on page 71 was
Yep.
where we brought, and then there were 2 that got through before I could even get the thing done. So that's why there was this was my original memo that was written in blue. I think I forwarded it to you all probably, at that time. On one of my updates, and let you know that it was coming down the line, and then there were 2 more homes that had already received building permits. So at that time, it was how many, 11? Yeah,
I
11.
think 11.
Yes, and those I'm assuming that the homes are being built right now, and they are at 1,600 minimum square feet. Or greater, but I think, if you look at them, they're all 17, except for the first 2.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, we're all pretty clear on the history and how we've gotten to this point. Thank you for that explanation.
I don't know
And you have
how
more?
clear we are. No, yeah, I'm done.
Please continue.
All good.
That's it?
Brandon, did I miss anything from what you remember of it?
Nope. All on the history side.
I'll just let me just walk through every page really fast before on page 53, you have the major amendment number 1, which is the request from Mr. Robert Bell. And he does kind of give you the history of setbacks, house sizes, and amendments per him. This is his interpretation of the history. And I highlighted in blue on page 53, the city of Jenks had a policy that the minimum house size be above 1,500 square feet. That is his statement, that is not my statement. The PUD amendment request, remove required house size from the planned unit development criteria of Phase 2 of PUD 116, and place the minimum house size in the private covenants area of the filed plat for Phase 2 of Fraser Meadows. This conforms to the lot design of the subdivision and the PUD for Phase 2 as was intended by city staff. And when he says by city staff, he is not talking about me. I believe he is talking about Mr. Jim Beach. So then when you keep going, you'll see a staff report that Mr. Beach had from April 18th, 2019. And it is assumed that it was Mr. Beach, scratched through the PUD and put this is actually the Fraser Meadows plat document. And this is the staff report that he had, and then it shows where he made his own comments per the applicant. I can't tell you anything else about it. This is what was submitted. I think 2 of you at least were here for Fraser Meadows 1, and this project was originally denied, and then it was appealed to city council, and it was approved in a second round. So then on page 60 of 107, it talks about someone, and we will say, Mr. Beach, private restrictions are not part of a PUD and not regulated by the city. And that's kind of what I've been talking about. There are, you know what the zoning requirements are because I give them to you every single time. There is a chart that comes from the zoning code. I say, this is what the zoning requires. This is what the applicant is asking for. And then a lot of times I'll go down and say other PUD stuff. And it may say minimum square footage or masonry requirements, et cetera, or playgrounds, whatever. So I have always distinguished, or always tried to, I can't say 100% of the time, distinguish between the two. And then I think these are some snapshots of the plat as it had moved through the process in 2019. In the next couple of pages of the report. And Mr. Beach had tried, I believe, to take plan unit development standards out of the plat, which we have done, and you all have been fine with that. He tried to help everybody understand the difference between what is part of a legally binding plat per state statute versus what the city has always done. And the city has always, and not just Jenks, but I would say every municipality I know has always put the PUD language in the plat document in the deed of dedication. Do you all remember Ricky, who worked for Tanner Consulting? He was an advocate for removing it from the plats for this exact reason, because the PUDs just get too messy. They have too many amendments, and it causes these exact kind of issues. It causes hard feelings between the public and the staff and the developer because there's a mistrust. And sometimes it can be avoided, sometimes it cannot. It just, errors happen. So another comment I think that was made, let me see if I can find it, is on the definition of a livability space. And we have a definition that our building inspectors use, and it is what it is. Like, it is anything that is heated and cooled. So it does include closets and bathrooms. Some people said it did not, and we're like, yes, it does. It does include closets and bathrooms. So, let's see. Then I have the memo that I presented to you all on December 19th. And we went through the very questions that I think were asked by the public. I kind of went through and answered them at that time. So I think rehashing all of that is, I personally think, is pointless. We've gone through all of this. It has been approved. It has been accepted. And I even said what it says in here, what if it happens again, blah, 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 integrity, transparency, all of that was addressed in December. So what we're talking about tonight is a major amendment request. I will say on page 73 is that definition of livability space is defined as the heated, cooled space that can be occupied and used for living purposes. Generally, this would include all living areas such as bedrooms, living rooms, kitchens, bathrooms, as well as common areas like hallways, entries, and closets that are used as part of everyday living. So that would absolutely not include a garage. Anyway, I was saying that rehashing everything that we've gone through honestly more than once, but specifically in December for that I don't feel would be productive. That has been taken care of. The only question before you this evening is whether or not you want to and agree with the request to remove the minimum square footage from the PUD. And I believe it is specified as for Phase 2, which I did not make that clear in my own staff report.
Marcy, isn't the exact request actually on page 54 of 107, which is to remove required house size from plan unit development criteria, Phase 2,
Yes,
place
sir.
the minimum house size in the private covenants area of the filed plat?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you've just gone through a long description about everything that has been done to take that language out of the plat and put it into the PUD, and this request is to do just the opposite, the way this is written.
Which is exactly why I did not recommend approval.
Okay.
I think that the most transparent way and the clearest, most direct way for a developer to communicate with the builders is through the PUD document along with the plat. And I think that those details specifically that are not, that have always been included in PUDs should remain in a PUD and should be an addendum to the plat and should continue to be codified. I don't necessarily think they should have ever been in it, but that's a whole other conversation.
Can you maybe just explain to me a little bit of what the reasoning is for putting it with the deed of dedication versus the PUD?
I don't know how that got started. So PUDs are not prevalent in every community, but they are, the city of Jenks was built on PUDs. And those PUDs had very specific standards that were included. We're not talking about 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, we're talking about for 2 decades. Jenks, the city of Jenks has done business through the planned unit development process, and these standards have always been included as that give and take in the PUD process. So the minimum house size, the materials, have always been part of the conversation of, I understand you don't want to meet all the elements of the code, so what are you going to give us in return? Well, in lieu of more density, we're going to give you 100% masonry. And in lieu of whatever, we're going to give you a minimum house size. And that is how the city of Jenks has done business for decades. Yeah, that's how it's done. And so when we updated the UDO, the plan was to really write a good code that would move away from PUDs. But the reality was, the public likes the safety of the PUD, and the council likes the safety of the PUD. So we tried on commercial projects, we were a little more successful in moving away from PUDs, but on residential development, our code says if you're developing more than 20 acres, it has to be in a PUD. And what conversations do they want to have? They want to know how much square foot are you building, and what are the materials? What are the amenities? That's this conversation. What about the traffic? What about the schools? Those are the conversations every single time. So we added, you have to do a traffic impact analysis if you hit X number of new peak drive time. And you have, like, we added park requirements, and we added a lot of things that are now required that were not previously required. And for commercial development, we added a lot of landscaping requirements. So the code has a lot of really good language in it, but at the end of the day, the council wanted the PUD process.
Did that answer your question? I thought it was more related.
I mean, I understand the thought process and the reasoning on the PUD.
Why
I think
put
what
it in
I'm
the
not
deed of
quite
dedication?
understanding is the deed of dedication thought process.
It was
Like,
just how it was
what is-
always done. I think that it, maybe before computers and internet, when plats were being written and sometimes handwritten and sometimes typed up on a typewriter, maybe it was easier to include it all in a one-stop shop place in the deed of dedication. It just makes sense. I'm 100% just throwing a theory out there. I don't know.
The possibility of through that process, things could, the way I'm viewing it, could more easily be missed than through the PUD.
Yes.
That's what okay.
So Marseille, why would we want to make a blanket change to the minimum livable space instead of just giving the exceptions or the waivers on those lots that we didn't catch before and just let it go with just those lots? What's the benefit to the other homeowners in the subdivision who built 1,800 or greater square footage and have a value invested in that neighborhood, and then we're just given a blanket after the fact cursory?
Sure. I don't remember, I'm sure Mr. Bell will know when he comes up to do his speaking, how many lots are left. So nothing would change with this request, from what I understand. I believe Mr. Bell will clarify, but he is not touching Fraser Meadows 1. But on the portion, which is known as Fraser Meadows 2, where the lots had to be reconfigured because staff required them to move everything south off of that, those utilities. When that happened, those lot sizes changed and the configuration of the lots changed, and it makes it the product that Mr. Wilmershauser would have built initially does not fit the same way on those lots. They're small. And there was an acknowledgement verbally of, yep, that could be a problem. But nothing was ever done. So the fact that it got it changed on the plat doesn't make any sense. But the request, I believe, will be, hey, these lots were really challenging to develop. They changed from the initial intent. The city made us change them. We thought at some point that it was taken care of, and we would like to do 16, I don't know what the request was because I didn't think it said it in there. It doesn't say the minimum house size, but we would like to do X square feet in phase 2, and that would be the minimum. And I think that's what you'll hear, but you
So
can
were
hear from
those
them.
utilities there before the plat was laid out?
Oh, yeah, though,
So why are we having to change after the fact when we already knew that those were there and they couldn't lay on them?
well, their initial approval, I believe, they had initial approval from the city engineer at that time. And then when a new city engineer came in, the new city engineer, and you can correct me if I'm wrong,
There's a lot that I can.
the new city
just let me
engineer
explain. I-
said, nope, I'm not gonna let you do it that way. And it had to move. So
Okay.
there was an approved PUD with a concept plan, and then it's like we talk about a lot, you can
There was-
approve.
There was 3 changes that were major over a 3-year period of time that I need to explain the whole thing.
He'll explain it.
Yeah, just have a conversation.
Yeah.
We'll go into it in a minute.
So I think, well, now ask me again what specifically,
I was just wondering why we didn't have them lay it out differently the first time,
Yeah.
but so that we didn't have to make the changes or provide the exceptions for those particular lots.
Yeah.
If it was laid out properly, we could
there
have
were a
maybe.
lot of moving pieces from beginning to end. There was also the Corps of Engineers that got involved and changed the plan. There was a
Yeah.
lot.
There were 2 city engineers, planning.
3 planners.
3
Yeah.
planners, an interim
This
planner.
is all before her
Yeah,
time, so.
it was
I mean, I
chaos.
agree. Yeah,
at that point.
But where is the building permit in this process? Because I would think that it would come forth and show what that square footage was going to be.
On Fraser Meadows 1, all homes have been built exceeding 1,800 or greater, except for the 11 that have exceptions. So Phase 2, which is that piece down there that you see right there, that's, I believe, what Mr. Bell is asking about, because he does say for Phase 2 of PUD 116. So his request does not involve current platted lots. His request specifically involves Phase 2 of Fraser Meadows. And I probably did not make that clear, I apologize, in my staff report.
All right, we ready to hear from the applicant? Sounds like he can clear all this up for us.
My name is Robert Bell. Address is 101 East Aquarium Place in Jenks. Chairman, members of the commission, and let me see if I can help clean this up, because this was a nightmare for even to figure out what had happened. So nothing arbitrarily was put into a plat by our engineer and filed, but to describe what had happened, I'm going to go back in time to the original PUD approval and what I consider is a mistake that was made in the application, and that still haunted us, not just in the size of the houses, but also in the setbacks and all that stuff, everything related to the PUD. So the original PUD for Fraser Meadows 1 and 2 had a subdivision plat associated with the PUD. And that was processed, and that had about 150, 160 lots associated with it. So that was approved. And we were going through and putting the plat together, and those were, and I wasn't involved yet. This was before I was even involved in it. The engineer of record was putting the plat together, and they were bringing that forward to the city, and that's when Jim Beach wrote down that house size is not a part of this PUD, and to remove it from that PUD. That was the instructions that he gave to the project engineer. So, and he told them to put it in the private covenants at that point. It was at 1,800 square feet. At that, I agree with that. This is what it was. So, about this time, the Corps of Engineers got involved, and the Corps of Engineers said that we are taking over control of any tributary to a blue line stream. You can no longer put underground stream banks in pipes. You have to leave it above ground. That caused the engineer to meet the Corps of Engineers standard. He had to go redevise that subdivision plat, and they lost about 30 lots in that process. In that process, the plat that was in the PUD had certain lots and blocks and roads and road names. All that changed. So the PUD and the plat that came out after the Corps of Engineers didn't even relate to each other. Nothing lined up. The setbacks on a certain lot that was set in the PUD didn't line up with the lot and blocks that were in the plat at that point. So, and I wish they would have required them at that point to do an amendment to the PUD, because that could have clarified all that up and got that in place. So they came back with the plat with the 30 lots less at that point, and they were ready to file that when the new city engineer came on and said, oh, well, you can't have those roads or those pipes under that road, so we want you to change that. So again, they went back to the drawing board and to get that set up to where they didn't lose another 20 lots, they allowed them to do hammerheads on that north end. And I don't see a pointer, but off of 130th Street, you see these little stub out roads?
This is not how it was. That's what got changed.
Those are not normal. Now, that's when I got involved because we designed all that and put that into the PUD amendment to change those lots in that area to facilitate that, and these lots got longer, so the pipelines are on those properties and not under the road. So, at that time is when they came back with the plat with the 1,600 in it. Well, that's because the lots that were being designed out there, a lot of them, because of the Corps of Engineer changes and because of the roadway changes, they were designed at a width that would only accommodate a 1,600 square foot home. So then, recognize this is before anybody owned a lot. The developer owns the whole subdivision at that point. And it was in that process of that redesign for the roads, recognized that we had to go to a 1,600 square foot home for a lot of these parcels because of the design of the lots and because of what they were reconfiguring it at that point. The engineer put the 1,600 in the plat because he thought he was allowed to, because Jim Beach said the PUD doesn't regulate house size and the PUD is out of the house, and the house size is out of the PUD. And those documents are with you. So what he did at that point was, there was some of the houses, because of the design of some of the lots, were gonna have to be 1,600 square feet. They moved that 1,600 square feet into the plat. That plat actually went back in front of the city, or the planner, and then it went in front of the planning commission, and it went to city council, and it was all reviewed at 1,600 square feet. And we all missed it. I missed it. Because I missed the fact that Jim Beach told us that it was not in the PUD anymore. It was removed from the PUD. That's what his statement is, and that's what he told that engineer. And that was all missed. Because at the time, when all this was going on, the city standard was 1,500 square feet, and we could have easily gone at a PUD amendment at that time and changed it to 1,600. Move forward. We've got people that own these properties. All these people were told when they purchased the houses in the plat, because the title companies report what's in the plat, not report what's in the PUD, because in the plat's usually the PUD language at that point, that it's 1,600 square foot minimum. It wasn't until that we started looking at this that we recognized that Jim Beach never changed the PUD, and the PUD said 1,800. So Marseille's right. I think Marseille's wrong. I'm right. I think I'm wrong. What I've decided that we came to this conclusion, and we've known this for over a year, and we've debated how we're going to deal with this. So I appreciate Marseille doing the amendment to accept what was constructed in phase one. Because, and what's left in phase one, if a builder owns a lot in phase one and can't fit an 1,800 square foot house on it currently, then that's the lawsuit to the city of Jenks to figure out that structure at that point, because that's how he was told he had a 1,600 square foot minimum on that. But with owners in phase one, I'm not willing to go back and try to do an amendment. So nothing I'm requesting deals with phase one. Phase one is what it is. We got, there's 11 lots that are recognized that can be less than 1,800 square feet. And I will tell you that the majority of the houses in the subdivision never get less than 1,800 square feet. It's really designed to those certain lots that are associated with the end of phase one, the south end of phase one, and into phase two. So they recognized in phase two that there's several lots, because of the design and because of what we went through, that 1,600 square foot was what was recognized as being buildable on those lots at that point. And so when I submitted that application that I submitted followed what Jim Beach said to us. Remove it from the PUD, stick it in the private covenants. It could remain in the PUD as far as I'm concerned, and be 1,600 square feet and meet what the design was meant to be after all the changes that should have been done as a PUD amendment back 5 years ago, and this wouldn't have been a problem.
Why didn't you apply for that?
So when I applied for the very first PUD amendment, and that was related to the roads, or the pipes under the road, and I did do an amendment to change the house sizes in there, and that's when it was recognized that it needed to be 1,600 square feet. But none of us were aware that it was not 1,600 square feet at that time. And that was because Jim Beach told the project engineer to remove it out of the private covenants, and they moved it to 1,600 square feet in the DOD. That's how it got changed in the DOD without anybody recognizing it. So there's some documents in your staff report that is a memo from, that's Jim Beach's writing. If you'll look down and there's a section in there, he says, this is not PUD, in the PUD, this is a private covenant. That's what caused them to change that. And they believed, meaning the engineer and the developer believed, that Jim Beach had the authority to do exactly that. And that's why I say Marseille and I are both right and both wrong.
But why is your application to reduce the space and then put the new space in the covenant, private covenants, as opposed to just
I didn't want to have
amending
the house
the
size,
PUD?
I didn't want to have the house size discussion. And the last time I was at the city council, the mayor said, we don't regulate house sizes anymore.
But they did that night.
They
didn't take it out.
They did by controlling the width of the lot.
No, it's still in the PUD.
It's still in there.
But I'm perfectly fine moving the PUD to 1,600 for phase two. There's no structures built in phase two. That subdivision is vacant, and so and the design of not all those lots are designed to just be 1,600, but some of them are, and that was an impact for them to move forward. So instead of having that house size discussion that we've had with the neighborhood and on everything else, I just said we'll just follow Beach's deal and remove it out of the PUD and put it in the private covenants. I'm perfectly fine.
What number do you want to put in the private covenants?
1,600. And I'm perfectly fine putting 1,600 in the PUD, but that's what those lots are designed to be built to. Not all of them. And-
How many? How many lots are we talking
See,
about
well,
out of the
the
58?
thing is that never before in the city of Jenks, we have subdivisions in Wakefield that are designed
How many on this one?
is limited to greater than 1,500 square feet, because that's what everything in the city was designed to. So, and those houses are built at 22 and 2,400 square feet.
How many lots are you talking about in this phase two?
Well, there's not a lot in there, and
There's 50, I think it says 58,
in phase
58
two.
lots in phase two. Like,
And-
are we talking about 2, 10, 20? I mean, like, is there a reason?
So I don't know the answer to that. I really
Okay.
don't, because that's a builder question. Can you build on this lot at the size with the setbacks? And most of those are gonna be empty nesters where you don't have two-story houses. When you get up to 18, most of those at that size are gonna have the second story to get the square footage where it needs to be. So, but it's not, it's, what I'm saying is the 1,600 square foot would have worked back when when the entire subdivision was vacant. And the funny thing is that 1,600 was put in the plat for all of phase one and all of phase two. It just never got changed in the PUD language in the PUD. And I will take some heat for saying this, but I don't know of anybody that came down to the city and looked at the PUD language and knew that there was 1,800 until you and I got into that fight, because you and I didn't even know it until a year ago. So it's just one of those things that the entire subdivision was designed on the third round. And the third round meaning the first round was the developer's what he wants, and then it was what the Corps of Engineers wanted, and then it's what the city engineer wanted. And by the time we got through all that, then all that changed. And the problem is that the original PUD was designed, the setbacks was designed, everything was designed based upon a plat that had 160, 170 lots that didn't even exist. So if you look at the PUD right now, and you go look at the PUD, there's lots and blocks and street names and designs that don't exist. All that got so messed up because the government had their hand in it 3 or 4 times. The developers had his hand 3 or 4 times, and we ended up with a mess. And we've spent the last year trying to unwind it. And what we want to do is we agreed, and I've worked with Marseille to help her on that document that gets filed at the courthouse. I've helped her do the first couple of them that they've done. And so the PUD is going to be in that document. And we've gone back and we've got Scrivener's errors all worked out. We've got all this language, and we're going to put all this together and get it clean so somebody can look at that and know exactly where things are at. And this is the last piece of the puzzle. Phase one is going to be what it is. There's 11 lots there that are allowed to be less than 1,800, and the rest of them will have to be greater than 1,800. And phase two, since it's unplatted at this time, we're applying to, let's put 1,600, which was what it was designed to be. The majority of those, that I don't know how many, will be greater than 16.
Yeah, there's only
But
31 lots in there, I believe.
I was gonna say there was only,
There's only 30.
It wasn't designed for 1,600.
it was designed, there, no, so So you gotta recognize that when it was designed at 1800, it was 150, 160 lots over all of it, and all that disappeared. So the Corps of Engineers,
You know why
yeah, so what the Corps of Engineers,
why the original plat, wasn't it square, Scott?
no. What happened was the Corps of Engineers under Obama said, we're gonna take control of every tributary to a blue line stream, and therefore you have to apply for a national permit, nationwide permit, and if you bury more than 400 feet of stream, then you got to pay us money. That's what it was all about. So what the Corps of Engineers said, we had all those, so we had a pond in the middle, and we had all those creeks that go into that pond piped and underground. And all of that had to go to the surface and untouched. And when we did that, we lost those 30 lots. And when we lost those 30 lots, it was just pulled back, and on everything that was a creek was above ground at that point, and we couldn't make the lots. So then the third was the city said, the pipes that are under the road, move them out from under the road, which means we had to move the road. So we had to move the road to the south, and we did. Instead of reducing lots, we scrunched lots, to be honest with you. And the city was in favor of that. And we all recognized at that point that the minimum house size would have to change with the design of those lots. That was through that area. Can a builder build something greater than 1,600 on them? Maybe. But it was really designed to handle a better product at 1,600 square foot because we reduced the size of those lots. And that was all because that Glenpool sewer line that runs all the way through that subdivision had to be relocated out from under a road. And that was a city requirement. And that's when the lots were scrunched, and that's when we went to 1,600. And the project engineer put the 1,600 in the plat, but he thought he was authorized to do so because of Beach's comments on that paperwork that the PUD, I mean, he said this PUD, the house size, minimum house size was not a part of this PUD. That's what he told them. So Beach had no authority to tell them that. They didn't know that, and I wish we would have caught it, because we would have changed it before anybody lived out there, and we wouldn't be here tonight. But, so that's why we're after, and I'm comfortable with, if you want to leave the PUD, the minimum house size in the PUD in the plat, then 1,600 is what it needs to be on phase 2. Phase 1, we're done.
Any other questions for Mr. Bell? Nope. Thank you, sir.
And if you're confused, join the group. Thank you.
All right, we've been going an hour, 20 minutes. Let's take about a 10-minute break, and then we'll open the floor up for public comment. At 7:31. At this point, we can open the floor to any members of the public present. If you wish to speak on this item, if you would, please come forward, give your name and address, and we'll give you about 3 or 4 minutes to tell us what you want us to hear.
My name's Matt Albright. I live at 2060 East 128th Place South, Fraser Meadows, 1. What concerns me the most is it's hard to get the truth out of certain people. When I moved, I built a house there. Covenant's 1,800 square feet. If Miss Bell's right, then that's where they are. And all of a sudden, they popped up, sold all the lots off, and put up 1,600 square foot houses in places that don't need 1,600 square foot houses. I understand moving of the road. I understand those sideways lots. But all of a sudden, they started popping 1,600 square foot houses on big lots. It will take an 1,800 square foot house. Lots of people built homes there at 1,800 or 2,000, and all of a sudden, Schuber Mitchell's got big signs now posted out there, move in for in 300,000s. I built a house that cost $459,000 as a retirement home. Okay, built it on one of the lots, read the covenants front to back before I ever bought there, looked at the plat maps, and all of a sudden, I just got 116 from the city and all the changes. I didn't even see the 1,600 square foot amendment. It was signed on 18th December 24, and there wasn't a city council meeting. And we had come to city council 3 or 4 times on Fraser Falls, which is being built right across, adjoining us. And I just looked at your plat map for it, and it's different than the plat map that was shown here in December. I just want to get the truth out of somebody. If you're going to build a bunch of 1,500 square foot homes in a development that's got $600,000 houses, my question is why? Who's going to make out on all this? Okay, it's not the people that live there, and there's a bunch of people that live there now. And it's getting bigger with bigger houses, and all of a sudden we've got a 1,600 square foot, 1,650, and Schuber Mitchell's is doing what they can, because somebody put 1,600 square foot. I've never saw that. Of course, I don't look at all the different plats. I had a hard time getting the PUD out of the city. It's not like it's online. You can't go in and look up the PUD. You can't look up the new plat. You can't look up any new document. If you don't go back into planning council and city council in a 24 or 23 or 20, you don't see anything. Like I said, I finally, after 3 days, got the city, thank you, they sent me the PUD with all the amendments so I could at least read them. Okay. Would like the truth from somebody.
Thank you, Matt.
Good evening, Josh Glasscock. I'm at 12922 South 20th Place East in Jenks in Fraser Meadows 1. I bought the very first house here. When we bought our house and the covenants, PUD, everything said 1,800. Did not say anything less. The big sign out front said 350 plus. Didn't say 350 less. I mean, everything that I've heard tonight, it doesn't make sense. Like, obviously, they're losing money because they lost, 20 to 30 lots? So they're trying to shrink the houses. Who makes out from that? The developer. Who developed all the houses that got the 7 lots that got approved already for less? That is owned by the developer. So everything the developer is doing is actually, who's enforcing it? One, I have no clue who to contact. Let me take a breath here. You know how I get riled up. I mean, I can't handle it. It's just a lot. I don't know who to contact when we have all these houses that are already built. They're already built in our neighborhood that are under code. They're under 1,800. You're here, you see it. That's not just for 2. They're working on 1. They're selling lots on 1. Have any of you looked at this? Anybody been out there? So you see the house, the roof differences? You see the lot differences? Okay, so that's all I gotta ask, just please drive through. Simply, look at their lots, look at the cleanliness. That ought to tell you a lot. Thank you. Any questions?
Josh?
I have a question. So what would make you happy and calm? The 1800?
To be honest, to go back to the 1800, yes. 1600 doesn't suffice. But how can you build a $350,000 house on 1,600 square foot? They're gonna turn these 1,600 square foot into duplexes. We're gonna have rentals. This isn't gonna work. I will sell my house.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Marseille.
Thank you, Chair West. I will respond that a single-family dwelling unit cannot become a duplex, that it would not be allowed. And when it comes to regulation and enforcement, the city of Jenks enforces the planned unit development. And then there are, when it comes to the plat and the plat covenants, like as far as, that's where we were talking about, it's a technical document, so it should be Lot 1, Block 14, or, Lot 14, Block 1 should be X feet wide, X feet long, and there should be a pin and a marker and all of that. So when it comes to enforcement, then you have your setbacks. So a couple of our amendments have been for setbacks because people poured a footing that encroached a build line. So we had to do amendments for that. And it was caught during title. So when they go to get their loan, their lender requires a survey of what was built, and that's when they find out that there was an encroachment. Excuse me. So then they have two choices. They can go to the Board of Adjustment, or they can come back for a minor amendment. I don't advertise those. The state statute doesn't require it. And I really wouldn't want my neighbors to tell me that I can't have a clean title because someone made an error and poured my footing over the build line. So that's why there's not an advertisement. And the PUD is enforced. That's why we had to do an amendment. There was a discrepancy, which we've talked about at length, between what was on the plat versus the PUD. The building department now is aware, and they know what is allowed, and they absolutely will not approve a building permit that's submitted on purpose or by accident for anything less than 1,800 on anything in the Fraser Meadows development area. So
That's if it gets reviewed again, correct?
no, that's right
'Cause
now.
Earlier you said you didn't review the 7th time, you reviewed it the 6th.
No, the plat is what it is, but the PUD has never been amended for the minimum square footage. It is 1,800 square feet. There will not be another home built less than 1,800, I should say approved, and built less
this
than
again?
1,800 square feet. And the building inspections department knows, the engineering department knows, the planning department knows, the city manager knows, the council knows, the planning commission knows, everybody knows that Fraser Meadows was approved at 1,800 square feet, and that is what will be enforced moving forward. I cleaned up the title for those 11 homes, not as a favor to the developer, not as a favor to the builder, but as a favor to your neighbors who did not know.
Nobody knew.
Right, and so now they
Who
have a
does that
clean
fall on?
title. Those 11 homes have a clean title, and when they go to sell, it will be fine. They will not have any issues with their title. That was the purpose of the 11 homes.
So all this happened because of a typo?
All
Is
of
that what
this
you're putting
happened
it on?
because of a discrepancy.
We just spent an hour and a half going over how we got to this point. I had to learn it as well as everybody else up here, and that's what all the questions were about. So yeah, there were a number of things that transpired that were unfortunate through different planners, different engineers. it's a mess. There's no doubt about it. We understand that. It's embarrassing to us, but we're trying to figure out and help you out as to what to do about it.
Thank you.
Aaron Ferris, 2120 East 128th Place South. Thank you for clarifying everything. It was fairly transparent, and I feel like I'm more informed now, so thank you for that. Does the deed of dedication, is that in the PUD?
No, sir, that is in the plat document.
Okay, so I'll keep mine short and sweet, but I'll just kind of give you some perspective of to where my personal concerns come from and why I'm concerned with making any amendments. So there are things that have not been brought up that we've not voiced concern that are not adhered to, like in the deed of dedication and the PUD, how there has to be 100% masonry on the first floor. And there's a ton of homes that is not the case. And then how the amenities in our neighborhood were never built or started until Corey Box, essentially in a roundabout way, I use this term loosely, threatened Charlie by withholding, saying that he would withhold inspections if they were not started by May. And the reason why I believe that those were never going to be, like the pool's never going to be installed, is the neighbor that is right next door to me. There was never a water line even ran for the pool. One would think if you have to go and tear apart somebody's backyard, that you would do that prior to a home being built.
Mr. Ferris, I'm gonna have to ask you to stay with what's on the agenda tonight. That's
Okay.
what we have to stay on by state statute, which is just the size of the homes permitted.
Okay. I was
you.
just saying that to say that those were making any amendments. That was a concern of mine because stuff isn't being adhered to that's in place. But to answer your question, Mr. Bowman, yeah, 1,800 square feet would be what would make us happy because that's what we've been told all along. And if there hasn't been anything built on that, why can't they adjust to adhere to that now? Would be my question. So don't put the burden on the people that live there now. Adjust to fit what has been approved and talked about and discussed for 5 some odd years.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Make a couple of statements. You may have the floor first.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Hilton, please.
I would make 2 comments to that. Number 1, the city of Jenks has recognized other materials as masonry, and that can include hardy siding. So when a building inspector is reviewing a home, it may look like a ranch-style board and bat style home, and if that product is a cement board or then it is allowed per our standards. And so that would answer that, why maybe it looks like there, I'm sure I've driven through more than once, and there are definitely homes that if you were looking for brick, that would not comply. If you were looking for stone, they would not comply, because if you're calling masonry brick, then yes, it would not seem to be complying. But the city recognizes in all subdivisions the use of hardy siding and other similar materials as masonry. And as far as amenities, they are fully enforced by the city, and you do not need to worry. And I promise you, calling the mayor may be helpful, but the city enforces it, and the city staff enforces it. It is enforced through the PUD process and through our ordinances. And while it's very helpful to have council to maybe squeeze on people every once in a while, the enforcement actually comes from the staff. So when you have a concern, I would certainly ask you to direct those concerns to the staff first, and then we can investigate it, look into it. But I know for a fact there has always been a pull, there will be a pull, so you don't have to worry.
I'm not worried about it. The water line was never ran
Yeah. Oh, boy. Okay.
Would you like to come back up, sir?
Again, that all right? In the litany of documentation, where do the signed covenants, builder signed covenants fall?
When
They're
a,
recorded with the state of Oklahoma and recorded
don't
with Tulsa County.
the
They're in the
builders
plat, so they have nothing to do with the PUD?
signed covenants, they can, they might.
Okay.
There's-
I just wondered where they
You
fall.
have HOA covenants, which are different from the PUD covenants, which are different from the plat covenants, but there may also be repetition of things within, like, there may be one statement in all of them, there may be one statement that is specific to the PUD versus the deed of dedication versus the HOA.
Well, the
There's
HOA
multiple guiding documents.
Okay, the
we'll put
HOA
it that way.
covenants are in, covenants for Treasure Meadows 1, it speaks to lots of stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have to follow that?
Who is they?
The developer that signed it? And the builders that build in?
Sure, those are your private covenants. I don't enforce HOA covenants.
Okay.
That would be the difference. Like, I don't read your
I understand
HOA
that. I was
covenants.
just asking, so really they don't have any teeth at all?
HOA covenants?
Yeah.
They have whatever teeth you
They have
legally.
Well, it's actually a document in the county and the state, so I just wondered, okay.
It's very, we get a lot of questions about HOAs and enforcement. And I've worked for 3 different municipalities, and we've had that conversation forever. It's a question and an issue in every community, the enforcement of HOA covenants.
Because they're really builders' covenants. They're not HOA covenants until an HOA is formed, are they not? Aren't
The
they
HOA
covenants?
is formed at the beginning, at the conception, and then it's turned over to the residents at a certain time, at certain.
That's not what the document says. The document says.
I
that-
wouldn't know. I
Oh,
couldn't
okay.
answer
No, I
your
don't-
HOA
okay.
questions.
I just wondered where it stood, so there's really no teeth in it. It's basically. I
The
can-
city enforces the
Right.
PUD.
Yeah, the HOA can put a lien on any of those properties, or they're pretty powerful.
Yeah, but it's not formed. You understand, the builder signs covenants. The developer signs covenants when he builds the development. At least the last few I've seen coming through the city of Jenks. And they're signed by the developer. Signed, dated, official documents, they're notified, certified, they go to the county. And the HOA is only formed at a certain time.
Yeah, it's
There's no
when a,
state,
when a
there's no-
percentage of the homes have been
Yeah, but there's no
purchased.
law that governs that either. There's no
Right.
state law, there's no city law, there's no law, but it does get formed. But in the interim, it's a document that talks about everything. But there's no legal ramification for it, right? It says 1,800 square feet, signed by Charlie. Because they actually put the size in there for some reason. They're not. They're 1,800 square foot. Signed in 2022 by Charlie, and notarized, and the engineer signed it. It's not, this is a public document, you can look it up online.
I don't know.
I just wondered, okay, so there's no teeth in that.
It does not come through the city planning department. That much I can
just
promise you.
wondered Because, you got plats.
Yeah.
you got-
It's a lot,
Thank you, Matt.
lots of layers.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, ma'am.
But I'm sure you do too. I'm Jody Fowler. My address is 13006 South 131st, sorry, new address, 131st Place East. There's a lot of directions in there. I just need some clarification because I listened to you speak earlier and then I heard him speak that we were at 1,600. But then I just heard you tell him nothing will be built less than 1,800. Are we talking phase 1? He's saying it's always been 1,600, but documents say 1,800. So I tried really hard to follow
Sure.
the whole thing, but then when you just spoke to him, I got royally confused.
I'm sorry.
So that's
It-
okay.
It is very confusing. So the planned unit development, number 116, was approved with a minimum livability space of 1,800 square feet, and that has never been amended.
So there was just writing done, according
There
to
was a
him.
filed document. The
Okay.
plat was filed, and that plat said 1,600. It did not match, and it said it within the PUD language. So normally, when that happens, that language is pretty much copied and pasted from the original PUD. They take it, put it into the plat, and then it gets approved. So before you tonight is the question. There's two questions. Where should that minimum livability space be? Where should it rest? Because right now, it's in the plat, it's in the PUD, they don't say the same thing, and we made some amendments through a minor amendment process for Fraser Meadows 1, and now we have some, probably a minimum of 4 lots in Fraser Meadows 2 that are really should only have a maximum. I don't even know if they can meet their impervious surface coverage requirements if they build a home greater than 1,600 square feet. So the question before you tonight, before Planning Commission and before the public is, where should that conversation be legally bound? And I say, keep it in the PUD, because that's where I can enforce it. And that's where it has the most teeth, because when it is part of that document, it becomes the law for the city of Jenks, for that lot, for that block, for that neighborhood. If it's not in that, then it can rest in other legal documents, but I don't have the same authority. So if it's in an HOA document, I don't enforce private covenants. If it's in a deed of dedication, like I said earlier, that deed of dedication in that plat is really more about the city adopting the streets, accepting the infrastructure, acknowledging that there are easements. It's a very technical document. It describes legally the meets and bounds of every lot, and so it's a very technical, very legal document. I don't think that PUD language, because it gets amended, because it gets changed, because people change their mind, because people have different needs, because there was a Corps of Engineers, because there was a pipeline, because the streets got moved, it shouldn't be in the plat, because it never gets amended. And then people don't know what's
Well, yeah, because
enforceable.
you said earlier, the builders, I believe this is what you said, correct me if I'm wrong.
Probably is.
The builders look at the plat.
Plat,
They
yes.
don't look at the PUD.
Correct.
And that is how some houses got built at 1650, correct? Because the builders built them
They bought a
incorrectly
lot
because
with
the PUD said 1800.
They bought a lot, it would be my guess, they bought a lot, and their guiding document said you can put a minimum of 1,600 square foot livability space.
Okay. So then we scurried and corrected that or amended it to match the 1,600 number because some homes were built. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that
She's
right?
talking about in December, we made.
Yes, we allowed for those 11 homes to exist. We didn't tell them to add 200 square feet to their house to
Okay.
be in conformance. We said,
And that was
We
on
recognize
phase 1, and that's not what we're discussing.
That is true.
We're discussing
So-
phase 2.
So when you just said nothing will be built less than 1,800 to him,
yes.
where are you talking about?
Every-
Phase 1 or phase 2?
Everything north of that dotted line. So phase 1 is platted, and it has a PUD that says 1,800 square feet. Phase 2 is not platted, but it does have a PUD that says 1,800 square feet. Mr. Bell is asking if the Planning Commission would accept 1,600 square feet for phase 2 only. And where should that guiding document or that guiding language rest? Should it rest in the deed of dedication, or should it stay in the PUD? I have recommended that it stays in the PUD and that we do not put it in the plat. We already have that policy. So I was teasing the Planning Commission. I said, I'll overrule you at council if you try to take it out of the PUD.
But if it goes in the PUD and builders look at the plat, what keeps the same thing from happening again? Where
So,
they build lower and then we
The
have to
plat,
scurry?
the plat will be, it won't have that language. In Fraser Meadows 2 is not platted. That language already today would not be in there, period. It's gone. I took it out. Mr. Bell took it out. It does not say, it doesn't have anything in there about the PUD. It doesn't tell you how wide your lot has to be. It doesn't tell you what your setbacks have to be. All of that is gone. It is only found in the PUD, and they are told, so that builder gets that plat document, and they're like, well, shoot, this doesn't tell me anything, so it tells you to look at PUD 116. So they have to go find that additional document, and I would imagine, moving forward, that the developers are going to be handing that PUD document along with the plat to the builder, so that they have that, because that PUD document is the only place that language is gonna be. It's no longer gonna be in the plat.
Well, I guess as a homeowner living across from Phase 2, I'm quite concerned because I have over a 2,000 square foot home. To be looking at very small homes, that there's no numbers, you know, he's not able to provide, somehow there was numbers on how many lots for Phase 1, that was counted out, but there's no number idea on how many, and why can't those homes just be
Right.
placed at the 1,600 if it's actually needed?
It is in the staff report. There are 31 lots in Phase 2. And before the developer left, he said that he, based on lot size and width, that there are a minimum of 4 lots that would need a 1,600 square foot home. Just based on the realignment of the street and the realignment of the lots.
So
But,
instead of doing the 1,600 cover umbrella for the whole phase, why can we not, like Phase 1, only do it for those specific?
That's a possibility.
We can.
I would appreciate that.
as a
because then I don't have
clarification,
to-
as a clarification,
Thank you.
Phase 2 has not yet been platted, correct?
They are ready to plat, but they don't, we haven't.
They're working
We haven't
fast.
signed off.
They
They're
were
ready.
working fast. The
They're
road is
waiting
lined
So
on,
up.
with-
they're waiting on us, the
Without
city.
it being platted, you can't give, that's part of why you can't give an actual lot number, because it's not been platted.
We have
So-
the final plat is ready. It's been approved, at planning commission. You all approved it previously and, at council. But at that time, it did have the PUD language. Since then, the PUD language has been taken out. So the question tonight is, I don't think we're arguing about where that language is gonna rest, because we have already adopted and you all have been enforcing the policy of withdrawing the PUD language from the plat. So that really is not technically an issue tonight. It's just, can you have a 1,600 square foot house? Could you have 31 1,600 plus square foot homes, or does the planning commission want to recommend a different number of?
I think most of us would agree, we just don't want bigger lots like what's happened in Phase 1 that could have very much held a bigger home, but they went with a smaller 1,650. So if you do an umbrella of 1,600, you could very well end up with a lot more homes that are, that's my concern. Thank you, sorry I sat in it.
No, thank you, Jody. Anyone else? That's what Jody said.
Very short. Ed Phillips, 13422 South 19th Court, Bixby, actually in Jenks. I just want to make a general observation, talking with a lot of people in our area out there. I live in Providence Hills. There's over 1,000 homes out there now, and this is just a very small sample of the people and the level of concern of downsizing all these homes that they're talking about. And we got a lot more homes that are going to be built in the area, so is it really necessary for us for the people to fill up the room to show that they're upset or concerned about the square footage? That's what's going to happen, and it shouldn't need, we shouldn't have to get to that point. You know, we need to solve the problem if we can. Anyway, I just want to give you a little feedback. There's a lot of concern, and I don't think that's new news to anyone on the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Anyone else besides the applicant that wants to speak? All right. Does the applicant want to come back up? You got about 5 minutes to address what you heard, sir.
Well, there's no sense of creating any arguments, so I'm not going to respond to anything except what Marseille said. And I agree, there's only, to answer your question, there's 31 lots in phase two. And there's 4 lots that can't be greater than 1,600 square feet. So if you want to limit it to 4, we'll live with that. So, and we're comfortable, and I've always been comfortable with it remaining in the PUD. I mean, that's kind of who I was. I started all that. So,
You and I did.
so the remaining in the PUD makes sense. I just, and I was told tonight that he said he can get by 4 lots.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Robert while he's up? Nope. All right, so we'll come back to the commission, further discussion. We can entertain a motion on 3. It sounds like the applicant is more than happy to keep the minimum, it's not square footage, livability space at 1,800 with the exception of 4 lots, which is on 31 lots, about what, 12%, maybe make it 14% to be safe, something like that.
But so am I right, Marseille? So what happens is you have an engineer that takes a PUD and he turns it into a plat based off what Jim Beach said, right? And lowered it to 1,600 square foot. I would think if I was an engineer, I would know that I would need to read the PUD and not go like, I mean, Marseille, you could say that somebody needs to build a 100 square foot house and that just becomes law. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, an engineer should have known to go read the PUD and not know that somebody just telling him something would have been right.
I think most of the times that is accurate and applicable, but I can't speak for the engineer.
So I understand the 4 lots is like a compromise or whatever, but I mean, it should have been 1,800 the whole place. So I don't understand why now we're going to give 4 more. Well, in a year from now, are we going to give 5 more? I mean, I understand we're making a compromise, but it should have never been this way. And I don't think that, and we can't fix it at this point, so what are you going to do? You know, I don't know. But I feel like an engineer that did the plat should have known that to go read the PUD and not just take somebody's word for it.
And so there would be an assurance that when the final plat was given, that we would know that those 4 lots were truly 1,600 square foot homes. There wasn't a choice.
I think if I were a planning commissioner, that if I made a motion, I would say, I would ask the developer to identify the lots, the 4 lots, so that in the permit, it would be specific not to a general number, but to specific to 4 lots.
I think that doesn't necessarily solve the problem, though. I understand the 4 lots, and with all due respect there, I mean, I understand the situation, but this is where we're at. The homeowner's being told a certain thing, and, well, not told, it's in writing for 1,800 square feet, and to her point, regardless of which lot it is, you still have the risk of someone looking across the street or living across the street or next door to a smaller home, which in my...
Smaller lot.
Smaller home on a smaller lot, which still doesn't solve the problem of these people that have in writing the 1,800. For me, if it were mine, you know. So I struggle with the 4 lots even, although I understand from the developer standpoint the dilemma. We've already done 11.
And
That's
are
my
the
opinion.
4 lots together?
I have no idea.
Why can't we make them 2 lots?
I say they come back whenever they're ready to build, and they identify which lots are gonna be. They don't even have it platted yet, so we can't even identify the 4 lots.
I think that Mr. Charlie it's easier to say Charlie than his last name, that Mr. Charlie probably knows what those 4 lots are, and they could be identified even before council in 2 weeks. The, this particular project, as you know, has been, began in 2018. He does need to get going. He needs to get his streets in. He needs to get the lots. And you all probably know I'm not a kick the can kind of gal. I just like find a solution and make a recommendation, but it's your decision. I would say that these particular lots, if you're looking up there, half of them probably abut a future commercial development. Because you look at that corner there that shows ag, half of those lots are gonna be abutting an ag properties. It'll be commercial.
We moved to commercial because the county still has it as ag.
It is ag, but it will be
It'll
commercial.
get rezoned.
Right.
Okay.
So those homes, half of these homes that are gonna come in are gonna be abutting an ag property, and the others are already adjacent to very small lots that are oddly configured. So it's not a traditional layout where you're gonna be looking, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're not driving down a long street looking at little tiny houses, because these are probably already disadvantaged lots. And I'm not trying to sell you on the idea, it's just that they're backing up to commercial. That backyard is gonna have a commercial entity adjacent to it. And so I think that it ticks me off that we've had this conversation for a year. It's frustrating, it's disappointing, and when Mr. Bell says, when we had that fight, well, he and I have had very, very loud words. And I don't like that we're here tonight, but it has to be resolved. And I think kicking the can to delay it any longer is probably not the right thing at this time. I think the public needs a decision, and I think the developer has to have a decision, and I trust you all to make a good decision.
But how do we know that that's where those are going to be? Is there a way to determine, I mean,
He said 4, so he knows already. I just don't know what they are.
but we don't know in making this decision?
No, you don't. I don't know either. Your
That's-
motion would just, if I were making a motion, I would say the 4 lots must be identified prior to filing the plat. And prior
I just
to
don't
this
see that,
amendment.
how that solves anything for the homeowners that are already there.
Well, it ensures all the other 27 of them
Nobody's
are
there yet.
1,800 square feet.
But what if you live across the street from where this, one of the 4 lots is? I mean, you see what I'm saying? I don't,
There's no across the street.
I wish I had a copy of the plat, I'm sorry.
Backs
Right.
up from 130th Street and those about streets, that was where the problem was.
Yep, the floor's closed, guys, so we're going to keep our discussion up here amongst the
Let's
commissioners.
see, Amy. Brandon, can you go into this?
I appreciate what you're saying, Amy.
And find the,
I just,
should be,
that's the number one issue here, is we've got
Where would
houses
you want
across
them
the
to be?
street.
Where would you want those 4 to be?
I mean, I would want it to be where, like she said, it was either behind the ag or commercial, but also butting up against lots that aren't already sold, so that at least if I knew I was coming in and buying that lot, I would know ahead of time versus after the fact. So not knowing where the lots are, to me, is important. Because we are potentially putting them in spots that already have or near or visible to a current homeowner. But I don't know that for sure because I can't see, and I also don't know where the lots are. I think it's a timing issue of before the fact or after the fact. If it's before the fact and you're buying something next door, then you do your own due diligence and you know what you're buying to next door. But after the fact, that's where I have a problem.
But that is why we have the public hearing process. That's why this is a major amendment, not a minor amendment, so that people who do have an issue with it can come, they can express their concerns, they can participate in the process, and there can be an alert to them so that they can see what it would look like moving forward.
But to my point, that's still after the fact. These people are already
Oh, yeah.
there.
These-
You know what I'm saying? So we're making a decision tonight that affects, in my,
This is
unless
what
I'm missing
the-
something, that affects what's,
This is the new plat.
Okay.
So these are all, Brandon, can you go across that top edge, that diagonal edge? All of that are side yards. So nobody's driving into the street from Fraser Meadows 1.
so if
The-
you're in one and you are already there in that block 4, lot 10, and, or let's say 12, for instance, and number 8
Yeah.
in block 11 is one of those 4, you're now next door to.
Your
Your
next
house
door
is
to-
already there. You are now next door to one of these lots that we're talking about. And their house is already there, and we're making a decision tonight for something in the future that they had no idea about. That's my point.
We can restrict the ones that you don't like.
Can you zoom out just a tiny bit, Brandon, so we can see what?
I mean,
What's-
we could say 4 with the exception of,
But
Lots.
Scott, what I'm wondering is, the only one it looks like it would need a smaller house is number 1, down here in the left corner, because all the other lots are the same size. They're all 60 by 120, I can't.
I mean, does it?
Most people have a 6-foot privacy fence. I don't know if you can tell behind a
Those are
6-foot
all
privacy
60 by
fence,
120.
200 square feet difference.
But it's also,
Unless maybe
Sorry, I'm
talking
being-
number 1 and 2 there could also be 2 more lots.
I don't think we're gonna figure it out tonight.
you're
which
still
ones-
talking about putting a 1,600 square foot next to a potentially 2,000 square foot house, and values do come into play at that point. If you've got something next to you, for me, it's what's already there versus
Yeah.
what's not been told. What was told and in writing is 1,800 square feet.
I think your block 4 is part of your.
Isn't the floor
The
closed?
the problem is, I don't know that because I haven't been told that, so I don't know which ones it
I
is.
think those lots and blocks are amendment.
You called them out?
I think you called them out. Lot 1, block 4, lot 9, block 4, lot 10, block 4. Those were the,
Those are on the Fraser Meadows 1.
those were the lots that were built at less than 1,800 square feet.
I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about
She's talking about-
specifically what we're talking about tonight, which is
So what you're saying
moving
is-
forward, changing it.
So you're talking about, we don't want to build a lot on next to a house that has a big one already. And we're saying those lots in
You want
block
him to come
4
to the podium?
already have smaller ones.
Robert, can you come back to the podium for us, please, so we can get you on record?
So Scott, when he said block 1, block 9, or he said block 9, whatever house, he is talking about Fraser too.
So where
So-
are the
so-
4 lots that you're asking for?
In Marseille's staff report,
Okay,
okay, under the minor amendment number 4, which happened in December, she tells you the location of the lots that already have smaller houses than 1,800. And 3 of them are in block 4, which are,
It's the little bump out. So
Right
those
there.
are already 1,600 square foot homes, right there. So they would be potentially adjacent.
but that's only
and
3
this is
houses
the
out of,
area where we're talking about. And so this is the area where you already have 4 approved in this, lot 12. What did it say, lot 2?
out of 6. What about lot 12? if I don't know where the
So I
four
don't think-
exceptions are.
So the ones that were built in here,
Let me see, I have an exhibit, don't I? Here it is.
You're still not at the podium, Robert. Thank you.
the other thing I want to, and I'll show title companies, realtors, all that process do not report PUDs. They report subdivision plats in the closings. And the subdivision plat has 1,600 square feet as a minimum. And before anybody purchased out there, meaning those people, they were notified that the minimum property size was 1,600, not 1,800.
So we were all told 18.
Not by the title company.
Yes.
No. I don't
All right.
know because I
Thanks.
didn't
We
even
don't
know
know.
it was 1,800.
We don't know. They,
Thanks, Robert. Guys, we gotta make a motion on this one way or the other. Amy, do you have, you could,
what was built.
I guess for me, I just can't logically make a good decision on the 1,600 for lots without knowing how that affects the current homes
So
that
you
are
don't-
already built.
so you don't wanna have and it's not a 1,600-foot home, it's a minimum. It could be
Right.
17, 18, could be
Right.
whatever the market
Yeah.
drives it to or whatever the lot ends up supporting. You don't want an existing 2,000 square foot home potentially next to a 1,600
I
square foot home.
wouldn't if I were already in the 2,000 square
Right.
foot home, yeah.
So why could we not then say 1,800 square foot minimum livability space in Fraser 2, with the exception of 4 lots that could be 1,600 minimum, with the exception of whatever lots border Fraser 1?
I think
I'm
that
just
solves
trying to
the
look-
problem for me where it protects the current
That may
phase one.
restrict the 4 lots that they're wanting to use.
Well, but that's
Tough
their,
luck.
that's their problem
They can deal with
as
it.
far as knowing from the development side what they need and what they're capable of doing. In that case, it would basically be those that are up against that unplatted ag or
Yeah,
commercial, however you look at
Mr.
it.
Chairman,
yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to keep the minimum livable space at 1,800 square feet for Phase 2.
Where do you want that language to rest? Is that part of your motion?
That's just
The other
my
question was-
motion. We're not changing the minimum square
Right.
foot livable space.
The other question before us tonight was where that language would rest, whether it be in the PUD or the plat.
Both, because the plat has to follow the PUD in my opinion. The plat shouldn't have changed in the ones that happened in Phase 1. They were changed unilaterally without reference to any PUDs. The PUD is the master document. It's filed with the county.
Okay.
What it says is what goes. I mean, that's what we know. That we made an exception for those 11 lots so that they'd have clean titles. But as far as I'm concerned, the PUD is the Bible.
So the way I'm reading this, it says, the request is to remove the minimum square footage from the PUD.
Okay, so my motion is not to remove the language out of the PUD. Keep it at 1,800 because that's what's in the covenants and that's what everybody knows it to be, is 1,800. And now we need a second.
I'll second. I'll second the motion.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. Let's vote, please.
Just for clarification on the minutes and everything, the motion was to not allow a change in the square footage or livability space, correct? Okay, so an affirmative motion matches your,
Matches the PUD.
well, an affirmative vote matches your motion,
Yes,
which is technically to deny the
that's
project.
right.
Okay.
That's the way I would read it.
Can you say that one more time?
Denying the request.
Denying the request,
With an affirmative vote,
yes.
So
With
say
affirmative-
yes, we're denying the vote.
That
you're
is
denying
correct.
the request, yes.
Request.
I just, you're approving the motion, which denies the request.
Okay.
Yes, but I mean, I just wanted to.
That doesn't
100% clarify.
preclude the developer from coming back to us and asking us for specific lots to
Yeah.
change, but that's a different,
Yes.
different topic.
Okay. Wanted to make sure we're all on the same page here. Wilson,
Yes.
Boers,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Sellers,
Yes.
Nixon,
Yes.
Chair West.
No. Motion carries, which is a denial of agenda item number 3. Other business, any planning updates? Ms.
Yes,
Hilton?
sir, thank you. We had the downtown master plan economic development consultants present at the last planning commission. It was a
Marcy,
special hearing.
I apologize. Do we want to make just abundantly clear for everyone's sake that because despite it being denied, it still goes to council?
Yes, sir. It will be at the city council for another, in 2
The
weeks.
20th.
Yeah.
Yep,
So-
thank y'all for being here. Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
comments.
We have the economic development consultants were here for a special meeting. Thank you all for coming out on a Monday night and for listening to them. And then they came back to city council this past Tuesday, 2 nights ago, I guess. Wow, seems like a long time ago. And I think that they gave a really good report. They were present in person versus online. I think that that was probably a little easier to digest. It just loses something when you have the online communication. And so we, Beck Design came to the Urban Garden Festival. Did anyone get to come to that?
Before the rain?
Well, it rained cats and dogs, and I was there with my umbrella. You might ask why I did not bring a tent. I don't know. I knew it was going to rain. And I had a very large umbrella, but 2 hours standing in the rain with a very large umbrella gets you very wet. And surprisingly, nobody stopped to ask any questions. So, sorry. They'll be back at the Jenks Food Truck Festival. And in addition to that, I've set up a bunch of hours. So I'm going to type this up and send it out to you all tomorrow. But I'm going to do 2-hour windows. And literally, it'll kind of be windows because we're going to be downtown on Wednesday, May 14th from 11:30 to 1:30. And I'll have the same posters that they've created and that you saw online. And people will be able to come by. You can ask questions. You can vote. Please come and send your friends and your neighbors, announce it at your HOA meetings, and let everybody know. When Katie posted on social media, share it if you share city stuff. But
Not supposed to.
Signed a document saying
that you can't share city stuff. Do
No, we're
not
supposed to
share.
comment or any of that.
Do not share or comment. Okay.
thumbs up.
But
Okay.
City council can, not the planning commission.
Okay, well, do not share this under any circumstances unless you print it off and hand it to someone. So we'll also be there Thursday from 7:30 to 9:30 in the morning. I can't believe I agreed to that. And then on Monday, back at lunchtime. But I'm going to be here in the conference room that day, or community room, actually, not the conference room, the community room. I'll have the same board set up there Tuesday, May the 20th, in the lobby out here prior to city council that night. I'll be there from 4 to 6. And then, anyway, and then in June, we have 2 dates set. So I personally will be there. And if Beck can come, great, but I wanted the public to know and that we are very much interested in their input, and I want them to see the posters. I think they're pretty cool, and I think everybody's really excited about let's get started on the next steps. So look forward to that. I will send it out to you all, so if you get a chance to, don't tape it or staple it to your light poles or anything, though. We don't allow that kind of stuff. The other thing is, we gave you a document. I feel, I worked really hard last week getting your agenda to you by Friday.
Thank you.
With one exception, we left a document off, so I feel really, really bad about that. So we're just gonna ask Gina to close her ears because she'll have to recuse herself. There is a bank being built out at Jenks Landing, and they are in the process of getting their project. It's really underway. They had a little issue, as does happen in all development projects. There was a line, blah, blah, blah. They needed to move their curb cut, their access over. And so it's not a big deal. It's a minor subdivision, little thing where we file it with the county. It's part of the plat, blah, blah, blah. Not a big deal, except for I need planning commission to put eyes on it and as part of that technical advisory committee and make sure that you're in agreement with it. So I wrote it all up, got it all ready, confirmed it was going to be on the agenda, and then did not notice that it was not on the agenda. So that'll be on June. I've already given them the thumbs up to move forward. So they've already got the curb cut graded, and they were waiting anxiously for tonight's approval on consent, but guess what? It'll be June. But staff will not prohibit them from moving forward. They should be fine. So I feel really super, super bad about that and very irresponsible, but it is what it is. That's it.
I want to say thanks to Marseille for the literal hundreds of hours that she put in on this topic we discussed tonight, trying to figure out what happened and how it happened, why it happened, and how to fix it. And there's not a great solution. But I appreciate her working through this and trying to be patient with Mr. Bell and his diligence. And I know he has also spent months and months trying to figure out what happened. So thank you. And thank you tonight for the explanation that you gave us and the questions you asked. And thank you guys for the questions that we asked. I feel like I'm much more informed on how the plating and the deed of dedication and the PUD and all that kind of works together. And I think we've made, not we, I think city staff has made a good commitment to keep some of that language out of the plat and to keep it in the PUD so that we don't run into this again, hopefully long-term. So thank you, Marseille. Good job. We are adjourned at 8:29.